The ridge had never hosted a battle worth remembering. Just a knuckle of broken ground in Thessaly, all sharp drops and loosed stone, the kind of terrain that made large formations difficult to control and commanders nervous. The Greeks called it Cynoscephalae, the dogs' heads, because the summits looked like nothing so much as the snouts of hounds pressed into the earth. Nobody had ever fought a battle worth mentioning on these hills. That was about to change. In the spring of 197 BC, two armies that between them had reshaped the ancient world were about to collide here, not by design, not by strategy, but because a storm rolled through the night and left enough fog to make each side invisible to the other. When the mist finally thinned, there was no longer any choice about what happened next. What followed would shift the balance of power in Greece and expose the limits of the Phalanx. Picture the battlefield before a single weapon is drawn. On the higher ground, King Philip V of Macedon commands the right wing personally, the sarissa armed phalanx, the system Philip II had forged and Alexander the Great had carried across Asia. It is one of the most formidable infantry formations the ancient world has produced. Philip knows it. So does everyone who has ever faced it. His left wing, under a general named Nicanor, is somewhere below, still climbing, still forming, units scattered across the slope in fragments. Nicanor had been ordered to bring up the remainder of the army, but much of it was still climbing in marching order. The effect is the same. Half of Philip's army is not yet an army. Across the ridgeline, Titus Quinctius Flamininus commands roughly equal numbers, Roman legionaries, Italian allies, Aetolian infantry, cavalry, and somewhere in the rear, a line of war elephants. He is barely into his 30s, politically sharp, and presents Roman power and Greek freedom as not merely compatible but interchangeable. He has come to Greece to prove it. Neither man chose this ground, neither man will leave it unchanged. To understand what happens next, you have to understand why this battle mattered beyond the casualty count. 4 years before Cynoscephalae, Rome had closed the books on its war with Carthage. The cost had been staggering: 17 years, catastrophic losses, entire regions of Italy stripped bare by Hannibal's march. But Rome had not merely survived. It had come through the crucible harder than it went in, with veteran commanders, battle-tested formations, and for the first time, the appetite and the means to project power beyond the Italian peninsula. East across the Adriatic sat the kingdom that had watched all of this and made the wrong bet. Philip had thrown in his lot with Hannibal during the war, calculating that Carthage would win and that an alliance with the victor would expand Macedon's reach around the Aegean. Instead, he had acquired Rome as an enemy at precisely the moment Rome stopped losing wars. A first conflict between them had ended inconclusively. The second, now underway, grew from Philip's expansion around the Aegean, appeals from Rome's allies, and a republic increasingly willing to project its power eastward. For Philip, one victory here might preserve everything. For Rome, one victory here might redefine what kind of power it intended to be. The fog that rolled over Thessaly the night before had in some sense been building for 20 years. Before the armies met in full, they had already met in miniature, and that smaller collision is what turned a march into a massacre. Neither Flamininus nor Philip could see through the morning mist. Both sent reconnaissance parties forward, cavalry and light infantry, probing the ridges, trying to locate the enemy before the enemy located them. On the slopes of Cynoscephalae, those parties found each other at close range. The skirmish that followed was not a plan, it was a chain reaction. First missiles, then cavalry charges, then messengers sprinting back to camp with breathless reports. The Romans are retreating, send more men. The Macedonians are breaking, reinforce. Each side fed soldiers into the developing fight piecemeal, and each fresh commitment made retreat look more costly than pressing forward. Escalation has its own logic, independent of any commander's intention. By the time both generals understood the scale of what was happening on the ridge, the question was no longer whether to fight, the question was whether they could fight at all given the ground they were on, and the troops they could actually reach. For one army, the answer would prove catastrophic. Philip moved fast. He got to the high ground first with the right wing of the Phalanx, and whatever light infantry had kept pace. He saw the Romans below, assessed the advantage, and gave his soldiers the order that had defined Macedonian tactics for generations: close the ranks, double the depth, bring the sarissas level. The Phalanx compressed. What had been a line became a block, shorter, heavier, almost impossible to stop from the front. Momentum gathered, the formation began moving downhill. Flamininus advanced his left wing to meet it. This was the comparison later historians would make famous: Roman legion against Macedonian phalanx, head to head, neither side able to maneuver around the other. The legionaries threw their pila at close range and charged. The javelins bit into the Macedonian ranks. It made no difference. The formation absorbed the volley and kept coming, a wall of iron tips projecting far enough forward that Roman swords could not reach the men behind them. The left wing of Flamininus's army began to give ground, slowly, stubbornly, but it gave ground. On that slope, the Phalanx was doing exactly what it had been built to do for 150 years, and nothing Rome had brought to the field could answer it directly. But the battle was not only happening on that slope. While Philip's right wing ground forward in disciplined triumph, his left existed only in theory. Nicanor's troops were still arriving. Units came up the ridge in columns, not formations. Officers shouted themselves hoarse, trying to establish a line across terrain that kept breaking it apart. The Phalanx is not a formation you assemble under pressure on a broken hillside. It is a formation you arrive at, fully dressed, fully aligned, with time to check the gaps and lower the weapons together. Nicanor had none of that. Flamininus saw it from the opposite side of the battlefield. He had a choice: pour men into a losing contest on his left, or strike at the side of the field that hadn't formed yet. He made the choice quickly. He left the left wing to hold as long as it could, and rode to the right, where the elephants were waiting at the front of a force that had seen almost no fighting, and was completely intact. The right wing advanced at speed. The elephants advanced before Nicanor's line could properly form. There was no wall of sarissas to funnel them, no coordinated response, no formation to absorb the shock. Because there was no formation, there were men trying to become a formation, and then there were men trying to survive elephants. Behind the elephants, Roman Maniples poured through every gap that opened. This is the capability that makes the manipular system something genuinely different from the Phalanx. It does not need a single intact front to function. Each unit can turn, change direction, and press independently into disorder it finds rather than order it brings. The Maniples did not fight Nicanor's wing, they dismantled it. Macedon's left ceased to be a military force before it had ever properly been one. And then came the moment that no general ordered, and no battle plan contained. A Roman tribune on the victorious right wing, anonymous, unnamed in every source that survives, looked back across the ridge instead of forward at the fleeing enemy. What he saw was the rear of Philip's phalanx, tightly packed, every sarissa pointed downhill, every man focused on the Roman left collapsing in front of them. The phalanx had no eyes in the back of its head, it never did. The tribune peeled off no more than 20 Maniples from the pursuit, perhaps 2,000 men or more, and curved them around the contours of the ridge. Consider what Philip's right wing faced in the next few minutes. From the front, a Roman left wing that had been retreating, and now, sensing something had shifted, stopped retreating. From behind, victorious Roman Maniples closing fast, and the formation they were trapped inside was physically incapable of turning quickly under assault, on broken terrain, without the time and space to dress its ranks. The sarissa is 18 feet of lethal reach when pointed at an enemy in front of you. Aimed nowhere in particular while men with short swords arrive at your back, it is a burden. The phalanx did not break, it was unmade, rank by rank, file by file, as cohesion evaporated, and each man became simply a man rather than part of the most formidable infantry engine the ancient world had ever produced. Philip saw it from higher ground. He gathered what survivors he could find, and rode for the Tempe Valley. The butcher's bill, when it was counted, told the story plainly. Rome lost somewhere near 700 men, Macedon lost 8,000 dead and 5,000 captured. The asymmetry was not an accident, it was the result of one army recovering from disorder faster than the other. Philip negotiated. He had no other card to play. The terms stripped him of every possession outside Macedonia itself, most of his fleet, his war elephants, his right to maintain an army of any real size. At the Isthmian Games the following year, a Roman herald stood before the assembled Greeks and declared that the cities Philip had controlled were free. The crowd erupted. Rome had achieved through victory and diplomacy what a generation of Greek politics had failed to produce. Of course, Roman freedom came with Roman expectations attached. That contradiction would surface soon enough. Cynoscephalae tends to get remembered as a verdict, the moment history declared the legion superior to the Phalanx, the Roman way of war triumphant over the Macedonian. That reading is too clean. Philip's right wing won its fight, cleanly, decisively, against the same legionaries that had supposedly rendered the Phalanx obsolete, on open ground, properly deployed, with time to form and room to move. The Macedonian formation was still as dangerous as it had ever been. The battle was not won by superior tactics in the abstract, it was won by a specific set of conditions: fog that prevented coordinated deployment, terrain that split an army in half, a left wing that arrived too late and too fragmented to ever become what it needed to be, and by one officer who looked at those conditions and understood in an instant what they made possible. His name is gone, his 20 Maniples are not. What Cynoscephalae proved is narrower and more durable than any general lesson about which formation is better. It proved that the side which can act when the plan falls apart often holds the decisive advantage over the side that can only act when the plan holds together. The Phalanx needed order to be the Phalanx. The legion needed only itself, and on the broken ridges of Thessaly, on a morning that began in fog and ended in flight, that difference was enough.